Join me now to weigh in with a legal perspective, criminal defense attorney and anchor at Law and Crime Network, Bob Bianchi. Bob, thank you so much for joining me. Bob, obviously the investigation is still going on in this Michigan shooting, and we still don't have the answers. We don't know the exact motive. But that being said, legally speaking, there is a lot going on here, and a lot of people are looking into whether other people should be prosecuted, how much responsibility the school has, as we learned that there were some red flags before the shooting even happened.
Yes, Stephanie, it's an interesting case, whether or not it's a civil case or a criminal case. So let's break that down a little bit from a prosecutor's perspective. When I would be looking at a case like this, when I was a homicide prosecutor, I would be looking at whether or not the elements of the crime are met. What are elements? They're like ingredients when you bake a cake. And in this particular case, the parents are charged for failure to act, or what we call an omission, which prosecutors really don't like doing. They usually like to prosecute cases where people are actually acting out as opposed to not doing things or failing to do things. And under Michigan law, the ingredients for the prosecutor in order to secure a conviction would be that the defendants knew of the danger and that they could have avoided the danger and that they failed to use ordinary care in preventing the harm that was caused. So you could see when that has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt how it's a little difficult for prosecutors when it's a failure to act case as to whether or not the parents knew of the danger. That's going to be the hard obstacle for the prosecutors. The defense attorney undoubtedly, and when you're a prosecutor, you have to think about what defense attorneys will do. The defense attorneys will undoubtedly say, well, he wasn't a danger because the school vetted it and put him back into the classroom. So why should the parents be responsible for the decisions that the school made? That's where the defense is going to go. It's a very razor-thin case here, Stephanie.
Yeah, and then, we're hearing from the school officials, and they're throwing the blame back on the parents, saying that the parents were warned. So there's a back and forth going there. So as you mentioned, that the parents have been charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. That being said, there are a lot of experts out there that find this unusual.
It is. 78% of the cases, from some statistics I have read, are instances in these school shootings where individuals secure a weapon from a parent. Very few of those cases are actually prosecuted for the very reasons I just explained. You have to prove in the case like that the parent would know, basically, or should have known that a weapon and the child was mentally ill or emotionally disturbed, was going to go shoot somebody. Now, most children do not do that, so it's not a common thing. So that's why there's very few cases like this that are brought. And again, I get back to the fact that in this particular case, the parents, for what we know, did not know he had the gun in the knapsack. Then after he wrote this disturbing letter, there's no question about it, they obviously didn't feel he was a danger because the school let him back into the classroom, but they are infrequently prosecuted. But Stephanie, last point, I think you're going to see a movement here where they're going to start holding parents responsible by filing criminal charges like this. And in states that have more liberal gun laws, more or greater Second Amendment protections, that's going to be up to the legislature as to whether or not those laws are going to go through.
Yeah, and are you comfortable with that, just like as an opinion? Do you think that's a slippery slope, or do you support that?
Wow, I'm going in my prosecutor head. That's a really complex question. And one of my jobs as a prosecutor was to protect the community from the dangers. But by the same token, we have a Second Amendment right to responsible gun ownership. So, I'm not a politician or I'm not a political person, but I could see somebody making the argument that this is not infringing on the Second Amendment. It's just asking parents to be responsible with regard to weapons and children. So I think there's going to be a big push for it. I can't tell you. I'm kind of torn on it, Stephanie, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And as for the charges against Ethan, the 15-year-old, he's been charged with 1 count of terrorism causing death, 4 counts of first-degree murder, and so on. Do you think that these charges are appropriate for a 15-year-old?
I do. He did, again, I go back to if I was prosecutor, there'd be no question about the fact that this case would be waived up and that they would be treated as an adult. You have 4 victims here. It was a lot of carnage, and I definitely am sending a message that there's a big debate in the legal community that, don't take them out of the juvenile justice system, which gears itself towards rehabilitation. He's just 15 years old. They've never liked it whenever I waved minors up as adults. But when you commit a heinous homicide like this, at least this is the way I felt, we're going to prosecute you as an adult, and we're going to put you away for as long as humanly possible. So I don't think the actions of the prosecutor with respect to waiving it up was inappropriate. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so infuriating, and no matter what the charges are, it will never be enough for the parents who lost their loved ones, the 4 loved ones that are lost, and the several people that have been injured. It's really hard to imagine that people could be so evil and so cruel and want to hurt other people. I'll never get that. Well, Bob, thank you so much for your legal insight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Stephanie.
Of course. Coming up next, closing